people have been
Dry
tackling.
January. Yeah.
I never really go for dry January anyway, but I've just gone for a dry February.
Yeah, well, it's
Oh,
um,
you just
yeah, I mean,
wrote in.
yeah, I mean, it's a good concept, I suppose. My mate's wife was doing dry January. Um, but yeah, alcoholism. Wow. Yeah. So,
How have you coped with each and every month and day and week of
what since giving
sober
up?
living, you know, and thinking,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of it's fairly normal living now. I mean, it was quite weird to begin with because I was using alcohol to change the way I felt. I've always felt very anxious, fearful of everything. It's always like, say you've got a window you're looking out to the whole wide world through. Well, I was seeing a very distorted version of that. So imagine my window, I was sliming it smearing it with like anxiety and fear and all the rest of it. So it's given a very distorted, fearful view of the world. That's the only way I can describe it, really. And it was that since the year dot, since I was a kid, since I can remember. And so my first addiction was escapism, I have to say, because I just wanted to escape from this very fearful world, because grew up in the 70s. I was a boy, but I was and I am a very emotionally deep person, cry easily, very easy to tears and stuff like that. And when you're a boy in the 70s, where you're supposed to be a man, and all this kind of stuff,
mm,
and your default or your natural reaction to some stuff
always
is to
don't cry.
cry,
Mm,
you call, you're called loads of names, and just makes you feel even more worthless and underconfident, So basically, for me, I just wanted this version of Andy that everybody seemed to hate and take the piss out of to disappear. So that's when I got into escapism. When I was a kid, it was like, um, I fantasized I was a $6 million man or whatever, and then at school, I used to escape physically. I used to play truant quite a lot on my own. But opposite the school was this forest, and I used to just run in there on my own and just be there. I usually it would usually be the last half of the afternoon, so I'd just run in there, and I wouldn't have to go back to school. I could just go home from there. So, and that was a really kind of like alone escapism. It was almost like you got a really tight balloon and you let some air out the balloon. It's like, oh, kind of de-stress. And then I found, but then I had mates at school and that, and they were sort of saying how they'd been into the local town that Saturday and had a bit of a laugh. And I kind of thought, well, I'd like to have, that kind of life as well. Even I didn't know, I now know I'm an introvert. I didn't know I was an introvert then. I had no idea what being an introvert was until I gave up alcohol. Um, but so then I found alcohol, and that was like, wow, this is brilliant, and I don't have to physically move anywhere, and I can feel confident, and people seem to like me. Um, but very early on, going to pubs and things like that, it was quite obvious that, I'd get to the pub, my friends were that kind of level, I'd arrive that kind of drinking that level, and instead of staying at that level, I'd just go on like that, just carry on drinking, just one, it's almost like just one more drink, you know, and it's come up. Your internet connection is unstable.
mm,
Oh,
kept doing that earlier.
that's right now. Um, so basically, I just used to drink far too much, and I couldn't stop once I started. And invariably, I'd cause chaos. At the beginning of my drinking, it was kind of like just cause chaos. Basically, I thought I was being funny, and um, and then at the end of my drinking, it was kind of the last few years of my drinking. It was almost like when I drank a lot, everything that I was pushing down, all the years of resentments and stuff like that when I was a kid, would just come up. And whoever I was with at the pub at the time, it's nothing to do with them whatsoever, how I was feeling and all that stuff. But because I was physically with them, they would just have to say the wrong thing, and I would, oh, you fucking, just really kind of unleash this venomous attack of resentment, and right at the end of my drinking, my drinking took me to 2 suicide attempts basically as well, because I drank on emotions. You're talking about someone who can't deal with emotions really when they're sober. So, but there's a red wine and brandy on it, and you've distorted those emotions even more. You're never going to. Yeah, a couple of times I just tried to, the ultimate escapism. But right at the end of my drinking, it was kind of the alcohol kind of took over 24/7. But then very quickly it didn't. It kind of stopped working. It wouldn't take the anxiety away. It would take a little bit of the edge off, but it just wouldn't work, and it was kind of scary, and then I kind of sought help and got into AA, and that was kind of that was I remember someone said to me, "We know you can't drink. We just need to find out now why you did drink." And because drinking is just kind of like a symptom of my head, in my distorted perception.
Hole in the soul, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, just basically the whole kind of premise of it is I just continuously wanted to change the way I felt. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel like a man. I didn't feel good enough. I felt fearful. I felt anxious. I just needed something to change that feeling.
Yeah.
All the time, most of the time, and that was alcohol. And it just so happened when I drank alcohol, I just couldn't stop drinking alcohol. And lots of drink driving, lots of really bad. They call it the ripple effect, where you'll drink. It's like dropping a pebble in the center of a lake, and the ripples go out and affect everything around it. And that's kind of what my drinking is. Just the suicide attempts affected.
But there's so many high functioning alcoholics though, and you think, wow, they've got such an amazing capacity. Yeah,
Yeah, but they
struggle to even have one glass.
Yeah,
of wine,
but they're
so
if they're proper alcoholics.
Would you say that's
alcoholic,
just basically getting immune to it, isn't it?
What they can. What did you say? Sorry,
if they can have that capacity to drink and drink and drink so much.
Well, you get some people that drink a lot who aren't alcoholics. You got people that it's not how much you drink, it's what happens when you do drink. Some people have a big tolerance to it, but some people just kind of they might be a functioning alcoholic, and I was for a while. But there's a few close friends when I first gave alcohol, and I told them why. They were like, "You're not an alcoholic. You like a drink, but I hid it. I hid all the kind of the knock-on effects of alcoholism. All the kind of stuff in the background, all the emotional unleashing and extra drinking. For a start."
Yeah, there's just a lot of people though at the moment seem to be giving up for one reason or another, whether it's age related or obviously health. But there's sober consciousness, as someone put it the other day.
Yeah.
So
I think it's kind of like maybe for some people it's a kind of just a novelty thing, dry January. Some people it's probably an economic thing, because I don't know how much booze is now.
But you feel like you're in control of it, but actually, I don't think you're ever in control of it.
What, not drinking?
It's just such a barrage of emotions around it, I suppose. I just feel like you never really feel, well, at least I don't, because one can easily lead to another one because I'll be enjoying it so much.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's the matter? And before you know it, you nearly threw that bottle, and actually, it's going to affect you on some level. Whether it's being tired, some people, as I said,
I mean, it's just
their personalities or change themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
some people just manage to
I
keep
mean, it's just
going.
kind of like the thing is you can only see the outside of your body. You can't see the inside. You can't see the damage it does to all
Yeah,
your organs and all that kind of stuff. And if you're some of that damage doesn't happen until you later on in life. You kind of get away with it for a while,
sure, yeah.
and then boom. You um,
Yeah, you definitely got to do something before it's too late. So you've just had an experience with a friend of yours. What was your first sort of thoughts when she came to you? Were you immediately like, wow, I can't deal with this because
it
it
was
could
kind of
potentially
like
put you in risk, or
no. I mean, I wanted to help them, um, but it was just knowing how really, because they'd been through it before, um, and it was a case of keeping my distance a bit anyway. Because as you know, I've got stuff going on with my family now. My mum's not very well, and I've only got to devote. Um,
sorry, you just cut out then.
oh, did I hear
Mm,
me now?
yeah, just
Yeah.
that word.
Oh, right, okay. But no, it's kind of uh, so yeah. My friend, let's call him Benny. He yeah, he just basically relapsed. Um, and as what happens, which happened to me, I was drinking. Just kind of isolated a lot. You don't want anybody to. It's almost like you got a control over it if you don't let anybody in. But eventually, if you don't, it will go one of three ways. You'll die a slow, painful death, and end up in a mental hospital, or you'll do something, end up in prison. Um,
I mean, did all that come across your mind again? How did you cope with knowing, Benny was?
well, it's kind of Benny was kind
Mm.
of. Luckily, Benny kind of. I would text him every few days just to sort of say how you're doing, to try and get them to engage, with the outside world a bit. And I know other people were doing that as well for him. Um, and then luckily, Benny kind of had enough. He had enough kind of desperation in him that he actually, he rang me up and sort of said, I can't deal with this anymore. Can I come and stay with you for a bit? And he was like, yeah, of course you can stay. Um, are you still drinking? Yes, I am. Well, you can come and stay with me, but you can't drink here because I have to look after myself, you
Mhm.
know, and you can't just move from one physical location to another and just carry on the way you were, I mean,
Of course.
like geographical, they call it. Um, so he came over and luckily he wasn't too bad, not as bad as I thought he'd be. So, uh, so basically he wasn't drinking. Once he got here, he wasn't drinking. He was quite drunk when he got here, um, and yeah, we just spent a few days together. Just the main thing is to the main thing is to get through the first 48 hours, which is like the
Mm.
DTS, the physical effects,
Right. So it's
and it's
like a
like
drug, isn't it?
just don't worry about anything else. You're
Mm.
going to feel like shit for a few days. That's going to happen. Just got to go through it. So he's making sure it's just the physical nutritional stuff. Drink lots of water, try and eat a bit and build it up and eat proper stuff, which he did. And then me and him would go walking in the evening just to get out the flat and just get some physical kind of um, movement in the body and that. And I think it was more just a change of physical location for him that he needed. It's kind of because when you're stuck in your own place on your own, it's just like it's cabin, it's your own prison cell. Change of perspective, a change of scenery, and you're with someone, that can just bring you out of yourself. You stop when you're on your own. You basically just talk to your alcoholic head, and your alcoholic head will sort of say, "Let's keep drinking. It's the best thing to do." And you've got no defense against that. So it was a case of that, and and I was speaking to his family because they were quite worried. Um, and then it was like, right, call it um, AA meetings, basically.
Yeah.
That's what you need. You need to be around. You need to be reminded of why you can't drink.
Sure.
So I took him to an AA meeting every day. Um, and as soon as they went back, you could tell that they kind of like, yes, because they were worried about how they would be um, welcomed. And I said, just be with love and that. And it was, and that kind of really helped. Um, and it was like, my mum was really worried about me because I told my mum, and she knows Benny anyway.
Hmm.
But she's just really worried about me, you know. But I said, no, if anything, it just makes me stronger, you know. And it was really good for both of us. I think that week that he stayed,
Yeah,
it kind of helped him and helped me, you know, esteemable acts, helping someone else makes you
of course,
feel
yeah.
good, positive as well, you know. Um,
Just
but
rewarding to know
some
that
people,
they've recovered
but
as well.
yeah, I mean, like I said to him, there's some people that go out and start drinking again. You never hear from them again, or when you do hear about them, they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
There's this
Yeah, you've
one
heard too many like that,
this
haven't
one guy I knew who was like Mr. AA. He he helped so many people and that, um and then something happened in their life, and they started drinking, and then just kind of left AA, and they were found dead in their bed about a year later. You
you?
know, one of the last people I would thought that would happen to, and it did. Because you're defenseless. It's kind of like it's not
Yeah.
like you're cured and that's it. Okay, I've got nothing to worry about the rest of my life. It's not like that. You have to be. It's like I talked about that window. That window that you smear with, distort with anxiety and fear and resentments and that. You know, with with all the right stuff, which is like for me, it's like being in contact with AA regularly, but also stuff like physical exercise and all the soul nourishing stuff like cycling and playing the guitar, and that helps like scrape all the shit off that window and gives you a true picture, you know, of your life. It might not be as good as you want it to be, but it'd be accurate as opposed to this distorted, fearful version that
Sure, yeah.
your head shows you to keep you imprisoned in alcoholism. But I have to do these things every day, otherwise. I mean, I bought a bottle of wine a year ago. I think I told you. Um, I got really stressed, um, and really stressful weekend. A few things were happening. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't talk to my AA sponsor about it. I just kind of tried to cope with it, kept it all in, and then I bought a bottle of wine at the local shop. I didn't drink it. I spent all night kind of thinking about it, and then I spoke to my AA sponsor the next day, poured it away. But the scary thing is, as soon as I bought that bottle of wine, I felt really, really, really safe. So I know
Mm.
I've got my safety net there if I want it. You know, and that's how it can get you just as quickly as that. Just because you're having a stressful couple of days and
Of course, yeah.
you're not doing the good stuff.
I suppose there's that difference then isn't it, with people who actually use it as a norm because that's their go-to when they get stressed. So it's kind of like for them, it's just like having a cup of tea. Most
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who do, let's say, drink. Most people we know in our circles who treat alcohol casually. Do
Well,
you,
it's
it's,
they call it self-medicating.
yeah,
It's your
of
medicine. Self
course. So
self med.
and then
Yeah,
we're used to the celebrations, and it's always been in our family, since I was born, pretty much. So, my
yeah,
dad used to give us sips of beer, and I mean, it's never really not been around at all. But I know some families don't have it there, but
yeah. I mean, it depends as well. I mean, I really admire people I know that are in their kind of 20s of giving up alcohol because it's like,
mm,
no way in my 20s
healthy,
would I have been
great
able to do that.
skin.
My whole my working life, we had a social club on site with discounted priced alcohol. I was in band playing in pubs, and when I wasn't playing in pubs, I was in pubs. Friends. Always alcohol at home. We were always going out. It would have been. I would have had to change virtually everything in my life in my 20s. And I really admire kind of young people who give up alcohol and in
Stick.
AA, dependent, give up alcohol and stay giving up.
Yeah,
Um,
it's never the answer. And
yeah,
again, there's so much mental health at stake. It's
yeah,
you're not even sometimes aware of how much it's affecting you until the damage is done. Like you said earlier, if it's not,
yeah, yeah,
it'll be mental.
yeah,
So if you've already got problems and issues around your way of being, it's just going to get aggravated, isn't it?
yeah. And I think that is why some people do drink, because of um, you know, proper mental illness, like bipolar, all that kind of stuff. To
Mm.
quieten the brain. You know, but for me physically, I kind of got away. Apart from suicide attempts, I kind of got away physically okay, but mentally I kind of was fucked up. My anxiety went into OCD and depression and things like that, and I was on medication from the doctor, but you know, do not take with alcohol, and I took it with alcohol, so it
Yeah.
just didn't work, Um, yeah, it was, yeah,
Do you feel much more, a sense of clarity now anyway? Because obviously you've just been through another, riding the wave of an experience that you've been through yourself.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Feel like
it
you've
just makes you
climbed out of
stronger.
that quite
Yeah,
well. You escaped,
yeah. I
the
mean,
black dog, as it were.
well, luckily I've been around an AA enough that I bought the bottle of red wine and kind of thinking, what would happen if I drank that bottle of red wine now? You know, where would my life be in a week's time? Because no way I could have just drunk that bottle of red wine and not drunk after that. It would have carried on. It's kind of like that bottle of red wine. I don't know, what was it, £8, something like that. That would have cost me much more than £8. It would have
Mm,
caused chaos.
of
It
course,
could
yeah.
have it could have cost me my job, my all sorts. Um,
Worth the money it's printed on.
just kind of makes yeah. So luckily, I was able to think fairly rationally at that point about what would happen if I did. And even stupid things like I've got my AA sobriety date on my arm, and I was laying in bed thinking I'm just going to look really stupid if I've got an AA sobriety date of that and I've started drinking. All this, and that's one of the reasons I had that tattoo done, is to remind me that I'm an
Yeah,
alcoholic, and that helped that night. As stupid as it may seem, it kind of helped me.
not at all.
Um, and
Look
it's,
at what
but
you've
but
been
it is,
through.
if I'd have drunk that bottle of red wine, God knows what would have happened.
Mm,
Because I wouldn't have been able to
cool.
stop. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
a whole heap of things I've regretted in the past due to that. But
yeah. I mean,
I
you've known a few
always
people
said
with,
that I'm
you've been around
fine.
a few people that were kind of drinking a lot when you go out, and you kind of
I think, yeah, and it's when you start
detached a little bit.
accepting. Yeah, but I mean the knock-on effects. When you start accepting the consequences of that, then you realise, well, it's just not worth it, is it? So that's not clearly not an enjoyable evening, or you know, um, words were said or whatever, and then hated them, and then the next day you can't remember a thing. I hate all that stuff, and
Yeah,
what's the point of it? Really, it's like enjoy it, but why would you enjoy it to a point of blackout?
yeah. I mean, I think in your 20s, it's quite, it's a bit of a laugh,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I mean, yeah, of
Bit of a
course.
laugh getting in that kind of state. But
Um,
as you get older, I mean, I always think, even if I hadn't given up alcohol, I like to think, if I wasn't an alcoholic, I like to think I still would have maybe not given up, but would have gone through that whole pub drinking and stuff like that, and then still got into the coffee culture and
Mm.
fairly sober. You know, I'd hate
So
to
the
think I was
gigs.
still, because I know there's some people that kind of are acting exactly the same in their 50s as they were in their 20s.
Yeah,
Same pubs,
that's great.
same behaviour. And
Well, I mean, going back to the introversion extroversion thing, because I think that's all part of what's wrapped up in the fabric of the reliance on alcohol, isn't it? Because you want it to make you feel inhibited and able to do things you wouldn't ordinarily do
yeah,
sober. But it's a real gift when you start realizing, like, hey, yeah, we can do this sober. Like the gigs we've done. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm so
yeah,
petrified on stage half the time, but I mean, a lot of that, the early days anyway, when we did drink and then we gave it up, and actually it worked really well. The gigs went fine, and
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it
just
was
as good. But we at least probably were more conscious of what we were doing. I think.
yeah, and I think you kind of you enjoy it more. I think you kind of because you got a natural kind of confidence about it, as opposed to this artificial confidence of alcohol that makes you feel confident artificially and takes the anxiety away artificially.
Yeah.
If you're sober, you kind of you, you're kind of playing well because you're playing well, and it's you're feeling confident because you're feeling confident. It's not there's no kind of some artificial uh, thing for that, and you enjoy it more, and it feels like uh, it just feels like a more respectable performance. I think
Totally, and you're not just relying on that as a
yeah,
crutch to bolster an experience. I
yeah,
mean, obviously, I think one of the things, I think the time when we talked about this before, it didn't record, at
yeah.
least. I don't know, that's what I remember.
Zoom,
Because we were talking about
Zoom.
the celebrity world and why, certain people obviously relied on it to do their stage stuff. The death of Liam Payne, for instance, and other acts. I think
Yeah,
about Avicii
yeah,
and yeah, how much alcohol just plays a part in the scenes they were in. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
because back in the early days when I was doing the dance stuff, obviously I was putting it away and doing a gig and then feeling alive because I could do it. And
especially you were in the club scene as well, weren't you doing that?
yeah,
You know,
but I was again petrified because I knew deep down I just couldn't cope with the amount of people, and that's the introversion part because I realised I had to do that bit to bear everything else. Because actually, deep down, I was just so shy, you know. And so the shyness it crippled you, and then that's where alcohol obviously came in and said, "Hey, I'm your friend. Don't be shy."
yeah,
And
exactly,
then we did
yeah,
it, but it was sort of yeah, it's such a fallacy. Um,
yeah.
and
I mean,
then
I kind
later
of
on, obviously knowing, yeah, getting into studios, getting serious, actually doing the work, that was something else. Having said that, I'd go into a recording hungover, but I'd do it fluidly, and it worked out really well. Like flukily. I couldn't do
yeah.
that now. I mean,
Well, I remember I was in a band. I
I
was in a
staged
band.
it.
I was in a band about 25 years ago. We had 2 or 3 days recording booked down in Brighton. I remember the first day we got down there and we got to the recording place about 10, 11 in the morning, and we just got drunk. We bought a load of booze. We just got drunk, and pretty much what we recorded that day was unusable. You know, it was just yeah, it's just
Load
just
of
a waste.
nonsense.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it is. I mean, going back to what you're saying, you know, the whole crux now is you kind of, I used alcohol to change the way I felt, and now, going back to the music when we play gigs, I've now got enough confidence in us and the music we write that I don't need to change the way I feel, or if I do need to change the way I feel, I change it kind of organically through playing the music because I'm confident about the music. I think it's good music, and that kind of makes me feel confident enough to play in front of people. Because I'm not naturally. I don't naturally like to hate being the centre of
Looking at
attention.
you.
And you got, talk about people like Liam Payne, it must have been a nightmare for him because he was like, there was um, kind of for his fame. It was all of a sudden he was famous. It's not like a band in the old days where bands would gig for a couple of years and then they get a recording contract and then they spend a year doing an album, then a gig and that, and then just gradually would get known. If they're lucky, they'll gradually get known. And 3 albums in, I think I said this last time, U2 are a fairly kind of alternative act until about 3 albums in when they suddenly blew up because they had 5 or 6 years behind them of gradually building up. They were able to cope with it. We got Liam Payne who's pulled out of his normal life into this other life. And then all of a sudden, the natural thing with boy bands or girl bands is like the best looking one usually goes solo because they're the best and easiest to market. So you got Harry Styles goes off and blows up in, as a solo artist, and then they got Liam, so they all try and do it themselves, and they find themselves in hotel rooms a lot on their own.
Yeah.
With time to kill, and it's kind of like.
And again, how much of that is reality? Because when you're under the influence for all of that time, where you're surrounded by
and you got like
paparazzi, the
you
entourage,
got
and whatever else. It's
exactly. You got people telling you, all these people telling you what you want to hear. You're the best. You're amazing. You're great. Blah 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 blah. And then you got all the drug suppliers around you because you're an easy target. And you're away from home. You're away from family. It must be kind of a horrible existence. At
Maybe it
least
just wasn't so detrimental or had consequences. It's just not fair, is it? Sometimes you want a nice little whiskey or have a bit of rum or taste, the finest champagne or whatever, and it's
Well, I
just
think I think some bands they can kind of. There's some bands that have. I'm just trying to think of one where they have kind of gone through that and come out the other side, and they're fairly, then suddenly you hear about them getting into fitness and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the dinosaurs of, the Stones and people who seem to have just careered through their life.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, it is. It's a kind of
easy to.
I mean, it's an existence where you're told, every single day, you're told what time to get up, and your whole day is planned out with you're doing this at this time, this at this time, so you've got no kind
What
of.
about the diehard rock and rollers? How do they do it? How are they still existing?
Well, they can afford the whole, private chefs and nutritionists and all that kind of stuff, and private kind of like yoga teachers or whatever, and they've gone through it, they're kind of older and wiser, I think, and but again, those will be the groups that have kind of, gradually ascended to fame as opposed to suddenly being picked out of normality and put into fame.
Yeah.
So they're more kind of mentally, I think, equipped to kind of deal with it. But
it's just not like the bands back in the day, though. I suppose. I mean, I just don't remember alcohol being such a problem.
I mean, but look at us though. I mean, look at us when you lived in Devon. And I used to come down every other weekend, and then to begin with, I'd get down there and we'd catch up, and then we'd have something to eat, and then we'd do some music, then we'd start drinking in the evening. And then I think I used to suddenly, get down there at lunchtime as usual, and then I suddenly produce a couple of bottles of red wine. So how should I have a red wine? Should we oil all the cogs before we start? And then by the end, don't think we were seeing much daylight. To be honest with you, we were just out all night till till the morning.
To be fair, we did have some fun times meeting some
characters,
didn't we? And then obviously the music then followed. And
but it just shows you how you can get into kind of a,
and then
for me anyway, it gradually took over.
Yeah, it's all age relevant, I suppose, though, isn't it? That's why we've had this stop and start with our music anyway.
Yeah.
because of life happenings. But I just feel more and more interested in this, the journey of mental health, especially with people with, you know,
Yeah.
neurodivergences and stuff, because it's a lot more prevalent now. So
I
we,
think that's the thing. It's kind of like there's a lot more kind of out there to help you with your mental health. But I think now, there's more demand for it as well.
yeah, and there's more
You know what I
support.
mean?
So I suppose that now people can talk about it. There's no shame. Just talk about your feelings. You know, it's you're not a pariah because
Yeah, yeah,
you've got
exactly.
this, that, and the other, and you're trying to be a musician, or you know, you've got to be, you know, you're just always trying to live up to the next best musician or whatever. But you know, and then there's other. Oh god, saw the YouTube channel. What was it? I think it was Gretsch, the channel itself, Gretsch Guitars, and
Oh yeah.
Martin Gore on there, you know,
Oh,
Depeche Mode, and he's talking about the old days, obviously when they
he's
first
he's had a
coming.
drinking
Oh,
problem, hasn't he?
and he had that amazing green customized guitar. I mean,
Yeah,
well, that's the thing. He didn't speak about that, but he was talking about how songs flowed, and you know, you just tinker on the guitar. Probably yeah, under the influence, but he didn't say that. It was just nice to hear, you know, how that journey
yeah,
of Enjoy the Silence. I think that's track.
yeah. Because that was a slow love song,
All of a
wasn't it, to
sudden
begin
just blew
with?
up, right? Yeah, so he, you know, all
Until
those
he gave,
iconic songs
and they said, oh, I think they
start
said,
from his humble beginnings.
he presented it as a slow kind of like love song, kind of maudlin love song,
Yeah,
and they said, well, I think Alan Wilder, who's the main kind of musical architect, he said, I think it'd sound really good as a pop song. I think Martin Gore said, no, 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 you need forward it kind of thing. And then, but no, they made it into a pop song, and it was their kind of. I did hear the original demo a few years ago. And it's a
yeah.
very kind of like downbeat, kind of like slow, depressive song. You know,
I saw a thing with the hip hop producer as well. He's listening to the track. I can't remember his name, but he's listening to Enjoy the Silence, and he really dug it because you know it's like the first time he'd heard it or something.
mm. I love those reaction videos you get.
Yeah, that's it.
But
Yeah, so I just feel like a lot of people are talking about ADHD being, I think that's probably the number one thing people are talking about now because I mean, I attended a workshop the other day with the Open Uni, and you know, it was just a lot of people who were explaining why they found learning tough, or you know, with the anxieties that they have, how would they then be able to study and complete something? You know what I mean? Because I mean, ADHD is
yeah,
incomplete things. You know, I mean, I can totally relate. Start a project, don't finish it. I have all these ideas. I'm not, you know, I've not openly talked about it, but I do find it really fascinating. I think it's good to then get things clear in your own mind and then set aside a way to deal with it, you know, because if you don't, yeah, I could just end up doing another a massive undertaking of a project which I don't finish. That could be the music as well, you know what I mean? It's all
yeah, yeah. It's
um, so anyway, yeah, just glad people
yeah.
are bringing it to the fore now.
I think it's that kind of like I think it's that kind of like you say, recognizing you've got ADHD, and then once you know that's kind of part of the battle, really. Once you know what you're dealing with, is
It's hard to admit something, isn't it? It's hard to admit that you're
yeah, yeah.
bored.
Well, yeah, I mean, but we all are. But it's a bit more normalised these days. But again, it's that kind of like you know, it's like alcoholism. It's just like having a broken leg. You know, it's a bit yeah, it's a bit like having you know, if I've got something on my kidneys, I'll have to just the same as that to keep
Oh, you just
well. You
cut
know,
out then, Andy.
and it's kind of
You just said you cut out just
oh,
when
have
you
I?
said if you had a broken knee, you'd do what?
No, it's you know, ADHD, alcoholism. It's like having um, something wrong with your kidneys, say. So in order to stay healthy, you have to have dialysis every 2 weeks, say, and
Mm.
that you need that, and it keeps you healthy. And it's a bit like for alcoholism, I need certain things in my life to keep me healthy and keep me away from alcohol. And the same is probably true for ADHD. You know, it's probably a different approach you would take to projects like you're doing. You know, you're called.
Yeah, it's just directing your energy into something that you can hyper focus in, basically.
yeah.
get used to a structured way of doing something rather than being completely scattered and you know.
It's just finding that fit for you, isn't it? You know,
Mhm.
but it's again, it's like we're all seekers, seeking, searching for the knowledge that,
Golden nugget.
yeah, just kind of like opening that one door and suddenly the bright golden sun shines on you because you've discovered, the way.
Yeah, and actually put a name to something you've been struggling with for years. That is quite key, really
Yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
don't.
Exactly. That's what I
Then
meant.
people just think you're mad, or just they think that you're just whatever, or
Exactly. As long as
well,
when you know
what
what you.
other label are you going to give me? I'm sorry, I'm sort of built this way, but do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
is
each
that you're about like the stigma.
attitude.
But again, it's kind of like once you know what you're dealing with, you can
Mm.
now know how to deal. You've got
Yeah.
an idea of kind of what you're dealing with, and okay, so I know what I'm dealing with. Let's work out how to deal with it.
I mean, like yourself, you've experienced OCD. It's all these are really important factors that affect us every day on some level.
Yeah.
And if we don't nip it in the bud, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean,
I mean, the
destroyed.
classic, I did it today. I literally did it today. I was in the supermarket. I had a bunch of stuff in a bag. It was heavy. I put it down. I scanned my, basically some bath salts I wanted, scanned them, got home, and I think I just left them on the counter. It's a
All
classic.
right.
I'll do it a lot. I leave it on the counter and just leave, like, depending on what I've got on me, obviously, mostly I'll shop. If it's one item, do you know what I mean? So that one item. Anyway, I'll get my receipt and everything. And it's just like such a rigmarole in my bag, and I'm off. I get home, it's like, where's that thing? It's just mad. So, and I
Mm.
don't know what that is. I've lost my phone a lot as well, but then it will turn up.
Yeah.
These things,
At least you're kind of aware of it though, so
yeah.
you can kind
But
of
I'd like to be able to improve on it. It's just kind of annoying.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, you know what you're dealing with. It's finding
Yeah.
ways of you
I mean, I don't know how you can deal with a mind that's so wandering. It's this over, overthinking, the mind racing, or there's just so
mm,
many aspects of it. But
yeah, it's
anyway, I suppose somewhere deep down, it's all related to childhood trauma. Is the classic one they always
well, yeah. Well, spiritually, I often think
don't make
spiritually,
sense.
we've given ourselves these challenges
Mm.
in order to search and work out how to conquer them.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah,
because if you actually do think about your childhood, the more you think about it and relate to it and then make peace with your inner child, that's how I think this works, because we're just all kids in an adult body at the end of the day. Like you said, we're just one spirit that's been here since
yeah. I mean,
time when it was really awkward. We
we're all
didn't want to be
flawed.
here
We're all
dealing with
we're
all
all the
this
same person. We're
rubbish.
just we're just a different version. You and I are different versions. We're the same person as we were when we were a kid. We're just a different version of that.
Yeah. So really, we just need to be
It's
more
because
kind
we've
to
accumulated
ourselves.
experience and
Yeah, and just
knowledge.
realize we're okay. We're just constantly learning.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
we give
absolutely.
ourselves such a hard time for not doing. That's the other thing. The ADHD, you're like a late bloomer.
All right.
You just haven't had your shit together by a certain age. You might feel that you don't feel like you fit in,
Yeah, I mean,
no matter how hard you try. It's just, and then you beat yourself up. All that sort of stuff. It is so,
and then you want to change the way you feel. Yeah,
yeah. But again, with the alcohol, it could have been, a nice coping mechanism to stop those things.
yeah. I mean,
You know,
yeah. I mean, again, it
sober.
depends how the alcohol affects you when you put it in you. Do you
Yeah.
crave more of it?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we're all fucked up basically in some way, and that's the challenge. It's the challenge of how we
Absolutely.
approach that.
Yeah.
But it's again, it's like it's kind of
I mean, what's your number one way of, would you say now, other than AA? I mean, what's your go-to of a day to keep you
Um,
calm, relaxed, back to the center. Let's just think rationally, not beat yourself up.
yeah, I think it's probably alone time with exercise. Like I like clearing my head when I go for like a long walk. Just kind of like, just kind of, or
Walk so.
especially if there's a coffee shop involved. I love being alone in a coffee shop because
Mm,
that introvert thing, isn't it? You want to be left alone, but it's nice being around people as well because you don't feel that kind of loneliness. But
sure.
it's just that kind of like I kind of exercise of some sort, cycling or walking, and then just kind of like just just dealing with my head at the same time. And the exercise, releases the endorphins. So physically, I feel better. So I'm feeling more positive anyway.
Mm.
And then hopefully that affects me mentally as well.
And then what sort of
Um,
things stress you out though? You know, to the brink of say losing it again or just
just low. Just
coping.
I mean, I think since certainly since COVID, since lockdown, I've definitely my anxiety levels, which I've always had anxiety, but sober anxiety levels just seem, and I've heard a lot of people have said this. I've spoken to the kind of like the undercurrent. I can feel the undercurrent more with my anxiety. Um, but it's just life stress. At the moment, it's kind of in combination of like my mum being ill, trying to sell my flat. Where am I going to live next? I'm very good at projecting and catastrophizing.
Mm.
That I'm never going to find the right flat, or I'm going to find a flat and it's going to be awful once I move in.
Sure,
Worry
yeah.
about my cat.
Projection, yeah.
Just worry about my cat. You know, worried that something's going to happen to him. Just I'm kind of like a born worrier, really. So it feels quite unnatural if I've not got anything to worry about. To be honest with you,
I don't think anyone's not got anything to. I mean, yeah,
you know what I mean.
they seem to have their
But
facts.
yeah, it's just and it's just things like getting older. Worry about. It's kind of like worry about my health. I worry about you know a lot of like my mum and my stepdad and a lot of people of their generation have been very ill the last few years, and it's kind of like, but luckily they've had family to look after them or visit them in care homes or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I haven't got any kids or anything, so it's kind of like, so then you start thinking, oh, I'm going to end up in the care. If you're having a bad day, it's very easy for your head to get negative, think, oh, I'm going to end up in the care home all alone. No, and that's how it can get you. That's and you kind of think, oh, I can't be asked to eat properly. I'll just have a
Yeah, that's
takeaway.
just
Then it's like, I know I'm unshaven emotion. It's kind of like, well, I can't be asked. Then I can't be asked to shower, and then all this negativity takes
mm,
over you,
sure. Yeah, again,
and
just berating.
that's how they always say like an alcoholic relapse starts a long, long time before you pick up that drink. You
Mhm.
know, all these things lead you. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of I try I talk about the exercise and that's a good thing, but also just spiritual stuff, spiritual podcasts, spiritual books. The really kind of like perspective. It works for me because that's my belief. I've got spiritual beliefs, and that works for me because to what these podcasts or books are telling me. I just kind of
Do you think some people are just gluttons for punishment in terms of, say, then not wanting the help because they don't see it as
helping themselves.
I just mean, for people who are maybe really far down the path of dark
It's,
thoughts or
well,
uh,
there's some people I've met that kind of,
I mean, kind
so,
of almost enjoy wallowing in that state.
yeah. I
It
mean,
is
there's been
actually
a couple
very,
of
very
people.
addictive.
There's been a
You
couple of
know,
people in my life that have kind
explains
of,
a lot, doesn't it?
a couple of people in my life who kind of years and years and years ago, there was someone in my life who, would get really angry. And I remember I spent an hour on their couch once visiting them, and they just spent an hour ranting really angrily. And I said, I think you need to get maybe some professional help because you're really angry. And they went, oh, no, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. And then I think they got diagnosed with they told me they got diagnosed with bipolar or something,
Right.
and it was almost like to where I've
Sorry,
got bipolar, you know. Um,
did you say cloak to wear?
Sorry,
Did you say it's almost like a cloak to wear? You
a
cut
badge. It's like a badge.
bad, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a badge.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Which is kind of like,
Hormones. Mm.
it, it's just another way they just want to belong. I think
Yeah,
they want to be, fit in, even if it's kind of like that, in a kind of in a in a grouping of kind of mental illness, and
yeah.
then like you
I
say,
think it's,
they can wallow in that and say, oh, I don't need any help, but then they just keep, and you get alcoholics like that, a lot of alcoholics like that, and people who relapse, I don't need any, I don't need any help. And it's like all you can really do in those situations is to say, okay, you know where I am, and just kind of detach.
mm,
Because if they don't want any help, you're not going to convince them to get any help. They need to want it themselves. Um, but yeah, I've met plenty of wallowers in my life, and I've been a wallower at times. Um,
yeah, sure. I mean,
you
for
know,
sure, certain, since my parents have passed away, I've definitely veered more towards some kind of weird, I don't know, it's like a sort of day to day almost existential kind of, point of crisis. And I suddenly just realize how on the cusp of something catastrophic in a way, like death, could happen. Like, one person's here 1 minute, next minute they're gone.
yeah,
Flash. So it's just that constant reminder of how um, important it is. There is actually an existential movement going on at the moment. Follow this lady,
right.
what's her name? Emmy Van Durzen or something. She's just so full of wisdom and lovely, poetic things. She goes walking with her dog, and then yeah, she just comes out with all these really incredible insights. So, and I think she's part of some big. I haven't really looked into it properly, but it looks really interesting. And they're sort of gathering people together. They're doing conferences and stuff. You know what I mean? All that kind of.
Yeah, right, okay. Oh, sounds
I
interesting.
mean, not so because if it's not too spiritual, then and it makes sense. Then that's a cool thing for me to feel like I can get involved with. As soon as it gets a
Mm.
bit sort of woo woo or whatever, you know what I mean? I can't
Yeah,
get into that energy.
yeah.
And I do. I find it interesting.
Do you find you're very sensitive to energies these days, like people's
Oh,
energies? You kind of
completely.
like,
Yeah,
I
always
can't,
have been anyway. But
I
I
can't.
use alcohol as a mask, and I use other stuff as a mask.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I think 'cause I haven't got the energy these days. I just can't fake it now with people. If I'm around people that aren't nourishing my soul, or they're kind of like making me feel negative, I can't stay around them. I have to just physically leave the situation. Just exhausts me. It's just like they're sucking my energy.
Mm.
I feel exhausted. You know.
Yeah, and I think this is why a lot of people are finding their own path to, pursue self-employment or just do things that they enjoy, because you're just always going to come up against some kind of bullshit, for want of a better word, that may or may not be nourishing to you. So you just need to get out of there. Why would you stay in a hot kitchen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no need to
Um,
people please.
and then sort of blame everyone else for it. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
I think there's a lot
I think
more
as you
these
get
days.
older, you just realise you've got to
Yeah,
do
I
things.
think these days as well. There's a lot more kind of individualism in that people aren't afraid to reject stuff, be it being around a certain person that who makes it feel negative,
Mm.
or rejecting things like the religion they were brought up with.
Mm.
I think it's a lot more people feel they're able to do that kind of stuff as opposed to just having to you know go along with it with the risk of if they don't being demonized like in the old days, of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It's but what gets me these days is just the whole kind of the extremism of everything. There doesn't seem to be much middle ground now for rational conversations of
Right.
things,
Yes. It's very black and white.
which is annoying, you know. Um, but
You
yeah, I
got
mean,
a belief, and stick to your guns if that's your belief. Um,
yeah,
but
yeah, but it's kind of like, I know some people that kind of just so extreme with their views that they just don't, they're not prepared to kind of uh, have a rational conversation or to just to see your point of view. They just
oh yeah, just
dismiss you
think out
straight
of the
away.
box.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, so it's like, well, I haven't got the energy.
Well, it's like watching all the hearings. Recently, I don't know if you saw any of those, but the Trump hearings and
Oh yeah.
people who got absolutely roasting. So I thought it was quite horrific, really, because it just seemed
Well,
like
it's just,
people
I
with
mean,
cognitive dissonance, just not allowing these people to have a voice and a different opinion, basically.
well, but these again, there's two sides to it, though, isn't there? But that's
Well,
another.
that's what I mean, because you're always going to get this, aren't you? But then
That's
there's a
another.
hierarchy. So the people who are
Yeah. I mean,
independent,
it's just kind of like I try not to get involved in it. We're talking about the news, but
yeah.
it's just kind of like I just try not to get angry about
I mean,
it.
we've got enough in our lives going on, haven't we, without
Yeah, exactly.
or into politics.
But yeah, it's next few years are going to be.
Interesting.
Apparently, there's going to be some kind of big alien contact at the end of 2026 or
Yeah, bring it
2027.
on.
Heard that quite a lot
Yeah,
last few months. So hopefully that'll just take the emphasis away from fucking American politics.
exactly. This will
Hopefully they'll come and save us all.
prove some theories from childhood as well.
Yeah,
I definitely saw a few UFOs in my time.
yeah, yeah. So
I don't know if this is still recording. Hopefully, it's
says it is.
10 o'clock.
I presume because you've paid that it doesn't have
Did
a
I
time
set it
limit.
for 2 hours though? I can't remember. Yeah, but I mean, we'll just have to see because if it hasn't recorded to computer, then stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, should we wrap up anyway, and then we'll just talk
yeah.
more on,
Let's
these
wrap up.
subjects. And
I need to
obviously,
go
I'll
to bed.
try and yeah,
Bed
we'll,
soon.
we'll get some guests in on this soon, and then
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
hopefully have some more exciting things to share. But
Yeah, for
anyone
sure.
listening, thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed this impromptu
Been a pleasure as always.
February
Let's
podcast.
let's catch up the next couple of days, eh?
Yeah, sure. Take it easy, and all the best for your mum, and
Hey,
just
likewise. I hope
keep
you
in touch.
get the grips of your course.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Ciao for now.
And you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.